Welcome to Empowering Journeys Voices of Women in Leadership, a documentary series by the ZClub of Asian International School in celebration of International Women's Day. In this series, we delve into the stories of remarkable women who have paved their own paths, transcended social and professional barriers, and become catalysts for change within their communities. Through candid interviews, we uncovered the defining moments that shaped their leadership journeys, the challenges they bravely confronted, and the values they championed to inspire others.
From breaking new grounds in the boardroom to elevating entire industries through innovation and mentorship, these pioneers exemplify the resilience and visions needed to transform and aspirations into realities. Their personal anecdotes shed light on how determination, community support, and a commitment to uplifting future generations can open doors that once seemed firmly closed.
By spotlighting female entrepreneurs and professionals who continue to redefine what's possible, this documentary offers an empowering roadmap to anyone seeking to lead with purpose, integrity, and heart. We witness firsthand how the resolve to overcome obstacles becomes a unifying thread among these leaders, illustrating that perseverance and passion for progress can truly transform individual goals into collective triumphs.
Join us as we celebrate these leaders' accomplishments, learn from their wisdom, and carry forward the message that every young woman, regardless of background or circumstance, can rise to meet her goals. Together, we hope to spark renewed conversations on gender equity, cultivate ambition in the next generation, and reaffirm the Z Club's mission to champion female empowerment and leadership both in school and beyond.
Today, we are honored to speak with Mrs. Chamika Wickramasinghe, the founder of Canvas Interior Design Studio. Her story exemplifies the resilience, creativity, and strategic thinking it takes to excel in a competitive industry. Throughout this conversation, we'll explore the defining moments that paved her journey into leadership, the obstacles she overcame as a female leader, and the way she fosters an inclusive environment in her organization.
Notably, Mrs. Wickramasinghe has been recognized with several prestigious awards, including the Woman Entrepreneur Award and the Luxury Lifestyle Award. This recognition underscores her commitment to excellence and innovation, reflecting the high standards that she upholds in every project Canvas Interior Design Studio undertakes.
Join us as we uncover the experiences, strategies, and inspiration behind Mrs. Wickramasinghe's success and learn how each of us can be empowered to lead, innovate, and drive positive change in our own lives and communities.
Can you share the story of your journey into leadership? What key moments or decisions propelled you to where you are today?
So my journey started with a passion for design and actually to create spaces that inspire. So I took a leap of faith and started this company, my own design firm, about 13 years back, and so I took a risk at that time. So I would say the moments that shaped my career would be actually stepping out of my comfort zone and also taking on like challenging projects at that time, which I had a lot of self doubt, but I thought no, I could do it, and I took that chance. So that's my journey.
What challenges have you faced as a female leader, and how have you navigated or overcome these obstacles?
I guess the biggest challenge would have been proving my credibility. This industry is male dominated, but uh, you know, I have been able to create a very good team of like inspiring designers, and you surround yourself with people who motivate you, inspire you. That actually helps you to overcome these obstacles. And more than anything, you have to be completely be prepared when you go in for a presentation. You go in to present something to a client. You have to prepare well. So I would say it's a preparation and consistency, and also believing in yourself that really helps you to overcome these challenges.
How would you describe your leadership style? And how do you adapt it in different contexts or with different teams?
So I would say my leadership style is vision driven, and also I'd like to empower people. I like to empower, like, the younger generation, like, so they have a voice too. So my team, I've given like a lot of creative freedom, so they can voice their opinion. We talk about things, it's just not like, it's leadership is a lot about empowering. So I would say that is my style.
What strategies or habits have helped you maintain balance between your professional life and your personal commitments?
So I guess that's work in progress. So it's a fine balance, I would say, and I prioritize my time, and I prioritize the work-life balance. I exercise. I have time for like self-care, and at the same time, I work really hard. I delegate a lot. So, my team is really a great team, and I trust them to deliver and to do their work. So that's how I've been able to manage the work and personal life.
How important is an inclusive culture to you? And what steps do you take to foster it within your organization?
I think inclusivity is just not a value, it's just actually a necessity. You need to hear everyone's voices, and you have to have diversity, and you have to give the freedom for everyone to voice their opinion. Like, so that is, I think, our culture as well here at Canvas.
What advice would you offer to young women or anyone who aspires to become a leader in their field?
Firstly, you have to believe in yourself. That is key. Then you also have to take risks, and you shouldn't be afraid of failure. And you make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, and you shouldn't be afraid to make mistakes. You have to be bold. You have to believe in your dreams, and if you have the passion, go all out.
How do you personally define success? And in what ways do you hope your leadership will have a lasting impact?
Success is about making an impact. So for me, it would be how many lives I have been able to touch, how many doors I've opened for people, like to progress in life. And I would hope that I have been able to inspire people, inspire the younger generation, especially to become leaders in the future by setting a good example.
What advice would you give to someone considering a major career change later in life?
It's never too late. I'm a very good example of that. So you can change careers much later in life, because sometimes you don't know when you're young what you really want to do. You may do something else, and you might realize your passion lies in somewhere else. And then at that stage, don't be afraid to uh, jump into whatever that you feel comfortable in doing. And you must love what you do, because that doesn't become a job. So your career is something that you should enjoy every day. Going to work should be a pleasure. Like, waking up in the morning, you should look forward to going to work. So I think you shouldn't be afraid to take that step and change careers, because it's a learning process. Because now it's not like in those days that you can actually reinvent yourself even later on in life.
Thank you, Mrs. Wickramasinghe, for sharing your journey with us today. We hope our audience finds inspiration in your experiences. It's been a privilege interviewing to you today.
Thank you.
Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Mrs. Kasturi Chellaraja, an extraordinary leader whose career milestones have redefined what's possible for women in business. She stands out in Sri Lanka's corporate arena, notably serving as the first female group CEO of Hemas Holding PLC. Along the way, Mrs. Chellaraja has earned recognition for breaking barriers and championing diversity, featuring on Echelon's list of Sri Lanka's 50 most powerful women and frequently applauded for her transformative visions.
From an early start in finance to later helming a major conglomerate, she has demonstrated that resilience, innovation, and a commitment to values can drive not just professional success, but also meaningful social impact. Her influence extends beyond the boardroom as she actively supports philanthropic initiatives aimed at uplifting communities and empowering the next generation.
Join us in discovering the strategic mindset and personal dedication that fuels Mrs. Chellaraja's achievements and how her story offers an inspiring blueprint for anyone looking to lead with purpose, drive inclusive growth, and leave a lasting legacy. Can you share the story of your journey into leadership and what key moments or decisions propelled you to where you are today?
Okay. Um, okay, the journey into leadership, and I like the word you asked there. I think it started at home itself, right? And then there might be key moments which has propelled or my decisions I took. Um, so I believe being a female child, the environment you're brought up in, where it doesn't have boundaries or limits or doesn't restrict you of what you should do as a girl or a boy is important. So that happened for my mom or dad, because luckily I had only another sister, so no boys. So we were all licensed to do anything you want. And in that, wherever we had circumstances, whether you were naturally allowed to take the lead, we were allowed. So it started there. But more importantly, I think it happened in school, at Holy Family, where early on they realized that as a person, I need to get things done. So if I don't wait for somebody to take the lead, I take the lead naturally. So it happened in school and nobody stopped me. So leadership is not the title, it was just that somebody taking the initiative and doing it. So in school, naturally, I would be solving a problem, whether it's a maths problem for somebody else, or solving a class problem, or leading when the teacher didn't come to train us for netball. I'll tell the kids, let's get onto the field and practice. So it taught me very early that it's something within you. Nobody stops you, but you can stop yourself because you think you don't have the title or license. So I learned it. It is not that you have a license, you all have it inside you, and it's not the title. So school really helped. So which made me kind of become a prefect very early. And then when I was even in grade 11, I was a deputy dance captain for the school, whereas normally you have to be in grade 12. So in grade 12, I was games captain. So it showed that even though I was young, I took it on as a natural part of my personality. Now, it transcends into the corporate you're talking about. Firstly, I never wanted the corporate world. I loved sports, so I went down that path. But being competitive and passionate in what I do, I didn't let go of studies as such. So I made sure I just passed. I could have done better, I guess. I just did the just pass part of it. And parallelly, I managed education. In sports, when you choose something, I come from a place I decide whatever you choose, whether it's education or sports or all of it, do it with your heart and soul. So in sports, I would be committed, I would practice. I played for Sri Lanka. So I eventually captained the women's basketball junior team as well. So it naturally comes as leadership, right? And if when nobody stops you and they eventually give you a title, it's a bonus. And corporate world, I decided to go full time only when I was 29, because I had my two kids and I wanted to work part time. So I worked at audit firm throughout, but it was generally 30 odd years ago, it was work from home. So I moved into the corporate world at that time. So there the leadership was mainly, imagine the same personality who has gone into corporate world, and I didn't have the baggage of the politics of office, because you go in an audit firm, there's zero politics. So you go in there, you're kind of blind, and you be the same personality. So technically they realized it, And I always, I'm my own leader, and I always said my kids were important. So I managed the time according to what was important to me. And I focused on the outcome versus a title. I'll be very honest. So I was given titles in my career, which didn't mean a thing, but outcomes meant a lot. So over time, when I started growing, I realized while I get outcomes as a leader, you're in a glass ball. So then and then you're a female leader. It comes out as statements that she's strong, um, she's obsessed with performance. She doesn't go out because it's a woman. So there were lots of biases there. So what I really looked at is, who am I as a leader? What impact do I bring to the people? And I focused on that versus the noise. And for that, honestly, I had a coach, so which helped me to actually fine tune my style and be relevant and authentic, but also end up as a leader. I was known as a leader who was a tough taskmaster, but who led with a heart, um, and a person who get things done, who would zoom out, have clarity of thoughts, especially during crisis, right? So there were a few reputational things which happen, and these are the personality, they define me as a leader. The biggest thing I actually held close and I value is what was said was that under me people grow. So I was a person who was known to grow people under me, and so that was my leadership journey eventually. But it was, and where the decisions were I think, like in school, learning very early on to keep your personality and not change. Um, the other decision would have been, as a leader, getting into corporate world. And there is an inflex point in a corporate world. When you're under the radar, you're allowed to do whatever you want and be whoever you want as a female. But once you start coming into a peer group of prominent leaders, where that's a, they feel your competition, b, you don't sound like them, you don't behave like them, you don't talk like them, and you don't belong to a clique like them, and we don't share the same topics, then you realize, do you become one of the rest of the gang, or can you own yourself? So I think that point of inflection where I really define myself as a leader, that's who I am. I'm sorry, this is how I view things, these are my values, and these are how I take decisions. And yes, don't need to engage with clients or people the same way you engage, because I don't have the luxury of evening time. And I learned to own myself, and I always say this statement, I learned to own my skin very well. And that was that inflection point. So I get those were the decisions also, not to change who you are, not, and don't fall into pressure of conforming to the biases people have.
Who were the most significant influencers or mentors in your life, and how did they help shape your leadership style and aspirations?
Okay, there's one there were three influencers, but one main one, that was my mom. um, and that was not on, and none of them influenced my style on leadership. I'll be very honest. When I just heard this question, I thought, no, I wouldn't encourage anybody to change who you are, but you'll have to be self-aware of what you are as a leader and with how it impacts others. But the biggest influence is my mom. She taught me very early on that sometimes hard work is not all the time. Hard work is important, is needed, because she was the one who worked. My dad was a stay-at-home dad, so I saw her that doing that. I saw resilience in her. Most important, what she gave influence was the values on how I engage in whatever I do. There is always right and wrong. As long as you have your values strong, you make decisions in the lens of what's right and based on your values. And sometimes in a corporate world, as a human being, you feel sorry and compassionate, and you sit on that seat and you have to do the decision what's right for the company. And how do you marry the two? Sometimes it doesn't really marry. But the fact that if your values are right, you will manage it, and that's what you're being taught. So single biggest influence was my mom on that. And today I'm grateful up to date that she encouraged me to be the person I am. And even till she passed recently, it was, she would only encourage me. I mean, simple things like sometimes I'll be running off in a pair of shorts and she will say, I said, sorry, Amma, I'm just running off in a pair of shorts. She'll look at it and say, no, no, as long as you have your good legs, you wear it. I mean, she would never say, what are you doing? Wearing this and going out. It was never a negative connotation. It was always positive. So, and she was 90 when she passed. But, and most of it, my sister and I give a lot to her because of her. But the second one is an influence is because it's come from a place of gratitude, both the second and the third is my first boss, Mr. Javikrama, simply because I didn't come because it was my mom was the only one who worked. We didn't have money. In fact, I didn't even have money to do any higher education. So I finished A levels and I just joined his audit firm to play netball. And then he said, "You're smart. You have to get educated." And I said, "I can't put that burden on my parents, so they didn't have money." And so the company paid for my SIMA. So that sense of gratitude, I always look at it as a person who influenced me, is to play it forward. They played it forward, and I worked for them for about 10 years. And I always try to play it forward to people, even when I worked at Hemas, is sometimes if somebody didn't intervene, I don't know where I would have been somewhere else doing something, maybe excelling, but they gave me this opportunity to become an accountant who I never liked accounting. I never did offer accounting for my A levels or O levels. But the fact that they opened the door and said, we'll pay, and you can get qualified, was something that I always am grateful, and they changed my life. And the third person is the last, my chairman at KMAS was Hussein, is simply because even though I'm sure they have biases when it comes to people, but when it came to me, it was a look beyond it. So it was, first thing was the values of that family, which said, I remember this statement. They said, we won't expect women we won't treat them equally at office because it's not equal at home. So they can't control the environment at home. And I was a single mom then. So I had the license to be the mother first and work. Second thing is, he never had a bias. I mean, forget gender, even technically capability bias he didn't have. So I was a finance director, and suddenly the CIO left, and he said, "You're taking over the CIO's role." Now, there are people who know technology. I still wouldn't. I look at it as if it's something from Mars. But he said, "You're taking," and I said, "I don't understand. I don't understand a RAM and a ROM and whatever I wrote on paper. I wouldn't know how to talk about it." He said, "No, you understand business. Get the tech people to work for you. You ask the business outcomes you want, and you have commercial sense. You'll make it work." And honestly, I did, and I ran and he for 5 years, and that gave me the confidence that you can learn new things. You can also learn it the way you want to and get others to work. So the people who worked under me were the smartest people. At least I was like the dumb person, but I would ask business questions. Like, for example, if I would say, okay, this is all like virtualization in 2005 was like a big thing. I said, okay, what does it mean? Does it increase my top line? Does it increase my efficiency? Does it allow me to get new customers? So I'll ask a business thing. It's up to them to answer me. So I learned that, and put me into businesses like logistics, transportation. And the first time he told me to get in as a managing director of a cluster, whereas I was a CPO, was managing the back office, which I like technically always, the people say, no, women are good at managing the back office, whereas I put in to run a business and P&L. But mostly importantly, it was in a business which was more maritime and logistics and perceived as male dominant, right? But he said, no, you can make it work and just go and do it. So I guess the fact that you had a boss who didn't have the bias, had more confidence in you, broke that little doubt you have as a female leader, that because the world out there it's not stereotypical that a female succeeds. And so you also will start getting some doubts. So those three people actually helped me in my career. but my leadership style is my own. But I always had a coach, and he's an amazing coach from India called Shabir Merchant, who came in about 2009 because they realized that I was a very strong personality. I was strong. I was a straight shooter. Sometimes my words can hurt people. So I needed to understand, while I hold on to the values of being straight, strong, I needed to get the best of people. So which meant I needed to understand how I impact people. So the coach helped me to understand my style, but shape it in a way that I actually get the best out of the people around me versus damaging them. So, and also understand how people understand me. So that was how I would say, I mean, I got people who influence me, and how I shape my style. Yeah.
What challenges have you faced as a female leader, and how have you navigated to overcome these obstacles?
Honestly, as a leader leading a team, I actually, I wouldn't say I had huge challenges leading the team. Within the team I influenced, I guess these are again coming from school days where I would jump in and take practice and do whatever. And I remember at Somes runs, we were the mercantile A division champions, right? Netball. And at that point, so every year we are unbeatable. And the runner up was HNB. So one fine day, the HNB management decided to recruit, offer all seven of us of job offers at HNB. So at that time I actually tried to resign and go, but because I wanted to have a qualification, and then I thought I'll become a banker, because that was the only thing my mom asked me, get some qualification. So at that point, out of the seven, six of them left, and I was the only one left standing. And you had the mercantile tournament coming. So my boss said, Kasturi, you better figure it out. So at that, what I did was, I was a national basketball player as well. So I recruited 6 basketball players because the best netballers had gone, and we trained for 3 to 6 months, and we won the A division by 1 point. So for me, that leadership was not about the title; it was about getting people, finding solutions, and then there were no obstacles, right? So you fast track that into a corporate world. I don't see it as long as the outcomes are there. But the challenges, I would say, were two particularly. Is, I think the more you grow in your career, you will have peer pressure, right? The peer pressure of, say, being part of the rest. So I was only female. So technically, after management meetings or board meetings, they all go for a drink, and I would rather come home and be with my kids. So I said, sorry, I'm going. And it was like a chuckle and a joke. Kasturi doesn't hang out with us. But what nobody understands is all of them can hang out together because they have wives at home, looking after the kids. And the bias of, pushing the envelope. Luckily, I came from a sports background. I give it as good as it takes. So I would tell them, I said, you're there because your wife is looking after kids. I'm going, I have to look after my kids. And they shut with that. So I don't feed into that. I laid my boundary, like, you don't mess with me, but not many can do it. I do it because I was rough and tumble in the sports field. But the second problem, and this goes on everywhere, you will find it in different forms and shapes. So, but the biggest other challenge I felt is the how I lead and how I think and how I speak at boards or at management stuff. Because as a female, I think very fluidly, it's all in my head, and I deliver it that way. Generally, no offense, but I think men are brilliant, but they also have a two-dimensional way of looking at it. It's a you have to box it and show it. Whereas I'm fluid, I can connect it, and I think you see it in your mothers and grandmothers. They can solve 10 problems at the same time, and they'll handle 3 children with 3 different problems at the same time. But if you put a dad in front, they say, okay, you tell me this, you tell me this, and you tell me this, one at a time. So it's a similar thing. So I felt that people struggle to accept me for who I was for some time, till I thought look, I'm not going to fight it. I recruited two smart young men who took my thoughts. I would draw it on a board. I said, now put it in this two-dimensional way that a man could understand. Because I can't change the boards, right? They're all men. And they would look at it and they will fix it. And then I look at it and say, yeah, now they'll understand it. So I learned to communicate. So I found those were the two biggest challenges. Other than that, I didn't have any challenges here. Yeah.
How have you managed to balance the demands of being a mother while also leading in your professional life? And what advice would you give to others facing the same challenges?
Okay. Firstly, it's challenging. Um, but first and secondly, you don't balance it. It's a nice imbalance every single day. You choose where to focus more on each day. For example, there'll be days my children have parent teachers meeting. Not that I like the meeting because I'll get complaints, but the fact that I have to commit more time, and that takes priority over anything else. So then that day it's skewed towards the kids. Next day I might have to sacrifice and be at work or something. The fact that I laid it out very early in office that my children come first, and I chose how to manage it, but my outcomes are delivered on that on work side. The biggest thing I think I would have battled with would have been guilt, thinking that you come from this society which says motherhood, you should be there all every single minute of your child's life, and you should be there when they come and go, and sometimes you can't do it. So I guess those were the bigger challenges I had in balancing parenting and work. But I guess the fact that you learn to have communication and you learn to have an army around you. So I must say, my domestics, to my drivers, to my friends who supported me during that. So sometimes I can't pick up kids, my friends are picking up kids. My secretary would have been doing stuff for you. So it's not a journey alone. So anybody else, and um, in fact, while I was a single parent, I didn't have to worry about making sure the food was on the table for a husband. I only had to worry about my children. But know a lot of couples where the husbands help and support. So it's important, and all I encourage is have communication. And there are so many other leaders, female leaders, who don't get that support. So it's not that everybody gets it right, but the fact that you're not going to get it right all the time, and that's okay. Learning to let go of the guilt is a big part of it, and learning to not give too much of weightage to societal opinion is important. Yeah.
Um, There's often a common belief that women cannot handle the pressure of top positions as well as men. How do you respond to that thinking, and what advice do you have for women aiming for leadership positions in male dominant industries?
So I think this was opinion some time back, not anymore. COVID taught us that I think the countries which managed COVID better were led by women. The countries which went into chaos were mostly led by men, I guess. But it's about how men are geared and when women think, right? I think women, because you brought up in society and in families, they are the people who solve most of the emotional problems within the family, because our EQ is higher. We are more attuned to the people around us, are used to taking decisions in ambiguous situations. So I find that women are better managing during crisis. They can actually um, have clarity there because they're used to crisis. However, the danger we have is we feel more, so we can become emotional. So we need to make sure we keep the emotion out of it if you're going to take clear decisions. So I don't think that women or men are better leaders. It depends on who you are as a personality and what are the outcomes and what's the situation. And we have to accept all the personalities. So definitely a woman won't be leading like a man does, and the biases continue in society saying that, oh my gosh, and it has happened to me. Like, for example, there was a guy who applied for a job when I was at the transportation as an MD for the FD's role, and he had applied, and he had called one of another cluster FD and asked how is his role, and she said, "My God, if you want to get harassed by her, you want a tough boss, then it's Kasturi. My God, she's very tough. It's very tough to work with her. This is external. Now, the person who gave the opinion was not working for me. It's only the way I engage with them is the perception." And he didn't apply. He applied to another cluster and got the job. 6 months later, I became the boss of that cluster. So by default, I became his boss. So then, after about 6 months, he came and told me, "You're so different to what everybody says because I empower, I grow them, and this is the feedback I got." I said, "Yeah, that's the feedback people think or people perceive of me because I have come from this place. When you're a leader, my team is my responsibility. Do not touch my team." So nobody can say anything to connect. I'm like this little piranha waiting to hammer them. So I guess that was the problem. So I guess women can lead, especially women in crisis. I mean, and I've seen amazing women. Um, Today, I went through HEMAS during the worst crisis from COVID, which we were healthcare and domestically manufacturing company, to financial crisis because we were the import dependent company for raw materials. But we grew, we reframed and said, how do you grow during crisis? And I had to tell most of the, I had to really carry most of the male leaders to say, don't stress, we'll make certain choices and make it work. Because you overthink. I think we have the ability to simplify some of these things because every problem cannot be put into a framework and solved. And it grew. So for me, that was a sense of pride that women can do it. But and also, if you see Fontaine, and I don't think many know, she's under the radar. She's a Sri Lankan. She was at Holy Family, about 4 or 5 years younger to me. She's a regional CEO for Fonterra. She's based off Singapore now. She's a close friend of mine. A Sri Lankan lady, and she has phenomenally grown Fonterra around the region. Most importantly, she carried Fonterra Sri Lanka during the crisis as well, and very calmly. And I think seeing her and how she manages, how clear they are in women are during crisis. If you are given the freedom to be yourself, and sometimes you make the decisions with your heart, which is taken as a negative, but I'll tell you it works positively because you're genuine in what you're doing.
How do you respond to the idea that women can't thrive in top leadership roles because of familial obligations? And what advice do you have for those breaking through those barriers?
Okay, so why do men thrive in top posts? Not that they don't have families. They have a wife at home who looks after the kids or takes the majority of the decisions regarding the kids, maybe. Or when they sit at the board meeting, they don't worry or run at work. They're not worrying at the back of the mind about child. Now, when I used to sit at work, I'll know by 1 o'clock has a van picked up my child or my driver has picked up my child. Has he gone for this class? It's like you're focusing on this. There's a side of me which focuses on the kids' schedule, right? Um, and women can do it in spite of it. They can thrive. The reason men succeed more is society doesn't put pressure on them to be a hands-on dad. Society expects them to be the leaders out there in corporate, so it's supportive. They have to work till late, and the wives also expect them. Wives take on the role of looking after the family. Wherever the women have been given the license to have a career and the home front is supported by either the husband, family, friends, and nobody has judged, women have succeeded. I was talking about the Fonterra lady. I mean, her husband is an amazing Korean person. He also was a top CXO. However, he supported. He supported. They would have equal conversations, and I guess that was the secret. But where women fail is that society is looking at them in a glass bowl, and they are willing to. Nobody is willing to accept leader, or they're getting used to accepting the leader in a female form, and they're expecting, even if you get angry as a woman, it's like she's, look at her, she's getting angry, she's emotional. But a man who gets angry as a leader is a strong man. He doesn't give up. He's like that. So, and there are case studies that we don't like females having a alpha personality. Is that we you kind of sub unconsciously look at them as not likable. It's called a likability bias. So the women fail because of that. Female fail because they don't have support at home, and it's too much of pressure to take a leading role at the corporate and come home and have a spouse or family which doesn't support, and and you're only judged, and the fact that, and it takes a big man to support a wife's career. So women fail because of those reasons, not that they are not capable of failing. Sorry, not that they are not capable of succeeding.
How do you personally define success? And in what ways do you hope your leadership will have a lasting impact?
So I've been a person, success was never defined by money, status. Success was always defined about my goals, what mattered to me, and everyday joy, right? So it was about simple things. If I'm focusing on basketball, how do you win this match? Or how do I become a better player? How can I put more 3 points? If it's my kids, biggest success for me, the kids was, have I brought out citizens, kids who are good citizens, who are compassionate, who are kind, who know how to treat elders. That's success. Not a child who has got 5 A's or 4 A's and gone to MIT. No, and that doesn't define success, because eventually these people have to also learn to become happy. Um, Success for me is having time for myself. So it changes with every stage of your life. And I did a whole deep dive before I stepped out from Hemas and took the role in Singapore. And it was simply because I was very uncomfortable that I didn't have time for myself. I was very uncomfortable. My kids were growing now; they're in their 30s in Australia, and I don't have enough time to commit. I was very uncomfortable that I was not having enough time for my exercise and health and to travel and for my friends. And the second part of it was that eventually my corporate doesn't define me. So I had to think, will I be okay and happy if I don't have a title? Will I be okay and happy that nobody recognizes me as CEO of Amazon? And I was okay with it. So I realized at that point, success never was that. But the lasting impact, and which I really am grateful is, which I see now, is that whoever who has worked under me and had grown under me, they have flourished. They're holding amazing roles out there and within Hemas. But they still send a note thanking me for their contribution, or a small incident which I don't remember most of the time, that I have like allowed them to take decisions and stood by them and said, if it goes wrong, let's correct it. I'm there with you. Allowed them to be the leader they are, and how they're succeeding. So there was a functional lady who was running production and supply chain, and she went in as a CEO of another big company. And she was interviewed somewhere recently, and I wasn't there. And she had said, "How did you transition?" She said the biggest influencer was, one of them was me, is because she used to sit at meetings, and I would say, "All heads come and sit, because I want all of you all to understand what the strategy is, so that you all contribute." And she learned over 2 years how to think, and which helped them. It was like a mini class. Otherwise, you tell factory, you don't have to come here. It's only up to the MD and me. And so, if I have impacted people and given them opportunities they couldn't have had, and help them believe in their abilities and own it, that would be great.
Looking to the future, what is your vision for female leaders? And how do you see that shaping businesses, communities, and society at large?
I, ideally, I think the more female leaders, or for more, and I'm not talking leadership as in the top. I'm always saying everybody's a leader in every role you play. Having more women in active participation, whether you're your own business or working for somebody, is important. because that's the only way that A, the country will grow, but B, you also, I think, once you give up your life to bring up kids, the kids grow up. You need something for yourself as well. You don't have to talk about money. You have skills, whether it's a painting thing, be your own leader. And I feel that if we don't as society give up biases saying women have to be full-time moms, give up biases saying that because a woman is working, the children are neglected, bring up sons also to say that, you know what, it's not only your job. If the wife has an aspiration, only if they have aspiration to work or start a business, you need to figure out who can look after the kids or take roles, because that's important. And if you're a single parent, support each other to grow, because if not, women are not going to be out there in their career. In fact, globally, it is now reducing because women are opting to have kids late in life and then there's no support. So it's not a Sri Lankan problem, it's a universal problem. Yeah, and what was the second part of the question?
How do you see that shaping businesses, communities, and societies at large?
It's like this, like anything, if you have the people who think alike in a room, you will only get one dimensional view. So when you have diversity, whether it's a race, color, religion, gender, you're going to get a diverse view because every individual comes from a different background and cultural, and their consumer is different. When you have more women and more diversity within, you'll be able to compete globally because you're using different skill sets, different lenses to view the consumer. And I guess that will give us growth. Only when we are open to diversity in terms of even social standing. We are not, we are so, I mean, I see people when you find a person from a different society who cannot speak the way you speak. Everybody is like, you give a kind of view, look. That's not too good because that person has a brain. It's just like didn't have the opportunities we had. And for me, at that point, I will be very gentle. I'll talk in Sinhalese or Tamil or whatever, and I'll get the message out so that, you know what, they're all equal. We cannot. So I guess whether it's women or anything, diversity and accepting people for who they are and respecting people for who they are is something important. That's the only way the economy also will grow.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Chellaraja, for taking time to share your remarkable journey with us. We're certain our audience will draw inspiration from your experiences, and it has been a privilege and pleasure to interview you today.
Thanks.
Next up, we're interviewing Ms. Anjula Sivakumaran, who is a director at ISF Industries Private Limited, which is an industrial machinery and equipment company. She is also the founder of JeffJacks, a newly founded brand which is now exporting to the UK.
She is running ISF Industries, which designs and manufactures a wide range of processing machinery and equipment to international standards, such as dairy plants and tailor made equipment for the entire processing industry. Recently, she has started manufacturing coconut processing machinery, creating end to end solutions for coconut manufacturing firms such as Renuka, Adamji Lukmanji, and now signing with other large firms in Indonesia and many more.
Join us as we uncover the experiences behind Ms. Anjula Sivakumaran's success as a female engineer and entrepreneur, and learn how each of us can be empowered to lead and be independent in our careers. Would you be able to explain to us what your journey was, the start of your career, and what brought you here?
I started in 1999 with the family business, ISF. After my degree in England, came and joined our business in India. Worked there for a few years, then moved to John Kills, where I was placed at the meat factory and the Ceylon cold stores thereafter. Then after that, I came back to the family business, and that's where I grew.
As a female engineer in a male dominant industry, which is very inspiring, what were the criticisms you faced and how did you overcome it and be where you are today?
Well, it's an unconscious bias that women cannot handle technical. So There are times my clients would call me and say, I need some solutions. And I'm like, yes, how can I help you? They say, can you hand over the phone to someone technical? So I'm like, I am the technical person. So it's very common I face this. No criticism as such, that is just an unbiased feeling towards some of the people, I would say. And even recently, there was an incident where my client was not very convinced that I could give a total solution to basically to set up a coconut processing factory. So when I had a Zoom meeting, he was not very convinced. But when I met him, of course, he was more than convinced. But I had to go that extra mile to prove that we are capable of doing things. So that is a little bit of a slack I do find in my field.
What does success look like to you, both professionally and personally?
Success is a balanced life for me. So I'm a mother of two children, so I have to look after them, run a house. I also try to fit in a marathon or a race in between. And my career growth, my aspiration is to take my company to the global level and to become the global supplier to processing industry. So it's about the balance is my success.
Do you think there is a unique perspective or advantage that women bring to entrepreneurship and engineering?
Certainly. Women are more empathetic, very intuitive, and very creative. So I think with all these three combined, as you know, some of the greatest inventors are creators. So women naturally have that within them. So with the combination, definitely there is a huge impact women can make in the tech field or any other field as well.
What have been the key factors that have helped you succeed in engineering, and how did you develop these skills?
Right. So key factors in engineering is understanding my client's need. What is it they really need? There's a lot of gaps which needs improvement. I'm like I said before, we are in the processing and automation field. So understanding what they need, how we can improve their process in a cost-effective manner. So I need to understand that, find a cost-effective solution, and then deliver that. And of course, constant learning also add to this.
Have you had any mentors who have influenced your career, and how did their guidance shape your journey?
Certainly, there are many mentors I had. My father, my lifetime mentor, he was a great inspiration to me as well. And Mr. Sumitra Gunasekar at Ceylon Cold Stores, Mr. Atanaik at Ceylon Cold Stores, and Mr. Ravindran, our CEO, who coached me to um, how to think, how to solve problem, and how to find opportunity in every problem I have faced.
What kind of impact do you hope your work has on the next generation of female engineers and entrepreneurs?
Good question. I am trying to find uh, solutions to the problems still engineers and some big companies haven't found. Uh, I've selected this industry, which is coconut processing industry, and basically we give solutions to all the processing industries. But I feel coconut is something which is not yet developed. Because I think the Western world had taken over dairy and pharmaceutical and any other industries, but coconut is something they didn't know. So this is a great opportunity, and I have identified that, and we are going in that angle. I feel that the world has a lot of problems to solve, identifying that and having the right attitude and service oriented, cost effective solution to the customer is the right goal to have or right path to go proceed.
What advice would you offer to young women or anyone who aspires to become a leader in their field?
Like I said before, identify the opportunity. World has a lot of problems to resolve. Identify the opportunity and be service oriented and be focused.
Thank you, Mrs. Anjula Sivakumaran, for sharing your journey with us today. We hope our audience finds inspiration in your experiences. It's been a privilege interviewing you today.
Thank you, young ladies, and it's a pleasure talking to you all too, and wish you all the very best.
As we conclude Empowering Journeys, Voices of Women in Leadership, We hope these stories have not only highlighted the resilience and achievements of women leaders, but also ignited a spark in every viewer. These accounts remind us all that determination, passion, and a supportive community can transform obstacles into opportunities.
From corporate boardrooms to creative studios, these leaders have shown that each breakthrough paves the way for the next generation to dream bigger and reach higher. Their voices echo the Z Club's commitment to empower young women, fostering a future where leadership knows no barriers.
We invite you to continue this conversation. Share these stories, celebrate the successes around you, and become an advocate for the leaders of tomorrow.
Together, let us keep building a world where every woman's voice is heard, valued, and championed. Thank you for joining us on this journey.